This is Jeannie Ralston. I'm the co-founder of Next Tribe. And on a lot of Thursday nights, we try to get some really cool people in to talk with, because as you know, there's so many interesting, accomplished women out there, and we like to celebrate them. And one of our favorite writers is Michele Willens. She's written a lot of pieces for us, and we've been so lucky because, as I've come to learn, Michele knows everyone and has done almost everything there is to do. So we were saying cheers to quite a life. So I'm asking everyone if you can just mute yourself, and then if you have questions or comments, just write them in the chat, and then I'll call on you once we open up to questions. But Michele wrote this book. It's behind me, and if you can see it, it's disappearing. Anyway, it's called From Mousketeers to Menopause, and we're going to find out what she means by that. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Michele. She's a bi-coastal journalist who has chronicled her life with touching, powerful, and relatable words. She writes regularly for The Wrap, co-authored Face It, What Women Really Feel When Their Looks Change, and she does a weekly theater report, Stage Right or Not, for the NPR affiliate Robin Hood Radio. She's fortunate to have friends like Cher McBee, who did the layout of this book, Luis Hurtado, who designed the cover, and David Palmer, who did the illustrations. And they are great illustrations. It's a beautiful book. I mean, it's really great. So welcome, Michele.
Thank you. Thank you. My God, we've done a lot for each other the last few years.
I know. We're really lucky. And I'm just trying, there's a lot of people still coming in, which is great. So Michele, do you have a little something to start us off with a little something to read so that
yeah, well, people are coming in. My friends are always late, by the way. It's okay.
That's not true.
I know, I'm kidding. Well, let me just read a few graphs of one. I thought I'd read from the one that I called on not being Nora Ephron. I have a whole chapter on people who have died, and had some impact on my life. And these are just the last three graphs. And I thought it's a good one for this group because, well, Next Tribe is about wonderful women writers. So we can't all be Nora Ephron. Anyway, here are the last few graphs. So how did all the rest of us handle not being Nora Ephron? Speaking for myself, I knew one option was to hide under the covers every time she turned out a lovely piece of work about something that I may have thought about myself. I wisely knew when not to even consider competing. I recall working on a poem for a friend's anniversary until I realized Nora would be there and likely have a toast of her own. Mine went right into the trash can. The other option for me and all my fellow non-Noras was to do our best to emulate her in her obvious joys and all things professional and personal. We too could try to find new ways to turn heartbreak into hilarity, if not key lime pie recipes. We too could try not to try to be that witty woman at the table full of men. We too could turn rejection into begrudging and bemused acceptance. The last time I saw her was at a friend's 50th birthday party. She came around to every table with camera in hand, taking all our pictures. I may have thought to myself, "Oh, that's nice. You'll have some memories of this great event." Well, a few weeks later, the birthday girl received a beautiful photo album capturing that evening. Now, why hadn't I thought of that? Well, the only thing worse than not being Nora Ephron is not having her around anymore.
Oh, wow. That's really great. And you tap into that real feeling of that writers often find. It's like, why couldn't I write that? Or why didn't I say it like that? And
yeah, but you know something, Judy, I want to say something, because I once spoke at a writers' conference. A friend invited me in Maryland, and these were people who wanted to be writers. They had not published yet. They were impressed by my little career, so to speak. And at one point I said something to them about, I always thought I'd be Nora Ephron, but I found out there already was one. And they all kind of looked at me like, who's Nora Ephron? And I realized, we live in a particular world, the two coasts, and not everybody has to say, we may think, oh God, I'm not as important as her, but in New York, LA, we live in a very special kind of a place. And anyway, who knows?
Well, you also have you have people here from all over the country tonight. So, but I think what marks for me our Next Tribe readers, we are Next Tribe, for those of you who don't know, is a magazine, digital magazine for women, smart, engaged women over 45. And we try to celebrate women who are just curious, still curious about the world. And it sounds to me, Michele, that you've always been that person who's curious about the world and game to try things. Is that right?
I totally am. All my friends think I'm crazy because I go sit at bars all the time, which is, I think, might be the first essay in the book about women sitting in bars alone, which they do now a lot more.
When you wrote that for us, and I just thought it was almost, it got great readership, and it still does. It's because it's just acknowledging something that has shifted that nobody else has really paid attention to. So I really like that.
It was the first piece I ever did for Next Tribe, was the first piece. And I still do it all the time. And I've met some amazing people. I guess if the two characteristics I hope I have most are, of course, empathy is number one. And I think curiosity. And I have to say, it's never left me. I mean, 45 minutes ago, I'm listening outside and I said to my husband, what am I hearing out there? And I go downstairs. Well, it was people protesting outside the Russian consulate, which is right around the corner.
Oh, wow.
There I am asking the cops, what are they doing? Who are they? And by the way, my father came from Ukraine. So maybe I should be out there with them. Who knows?
Wow. That is amazing. And so your essays cover everything. And I think you said that the first thing you wrote was and where you get the title from was published in the LA Times. Tell us about that.
Yeah, in 1969, and I mean, it was the last week of 1969, I sat down and I started scribbling. I guess it was an essay. I had never written one. And I read it out loud to my parents. And my dad said, I'm sending that to the LA Times. He knew somebody at the op-ed section. Well, I'd never been published. I was 20 or 21. The next thing I know, there's a very big, illustration of me called A Child of the 60s, from Mousketeers to McCarthy. At that time I worked, I think it had to do with Eugene McCarthy. And what can I say? It was it ran the last week of that tumultuous decade, and kind of made me a star for about, it was my first 15 minutes, I always say. I didn't get my second 15 minutes for about another 40 years when I wrote one for the New York Times, which is also in the book, which is about suddenly being the oldest in every room.
That's something a lot of us have experienced. So what's the gist of the essay that you wrote at 1969, that first essay? What's the gist of it?
Well, the gist was what I saw over that decade, that I started off as a 10-year-old who was best friends with a little black boy. And by the end of, the decade, he wouldn't talk to me, not because I was me, but because I was white. It went back, it was just, I went from this to this. I went from being this to being that. I went from watching my father play tennis every day to trying to save the world, so I could live out my life. I went from watching my brother play every sports to watching him become a conscientious objector. It was that. I went from this, I went from that. And at the end, my last line, if I recall, the last line was something like, I finally saw a man walk on the moon and I didn't care. I think that was the last line.
And why didn't you care? Tell me why you didn't care.
I don't know. I think it was showing that I started off as this optimistic little girl and I ended up as kind of this, who cares? I'd seen so many bad things happen, So I don't know, but anyway, that was an important thing. So again, the Mousketeers have come back.
Yeah. Yes, and that's what it's funny, because I thought maybe you were a Mousketeer, meaning you were on the show.
I tried everything. My mother called Disney. How do you become a Mousketeer? I forget the fact that I had no talent, but the interesting thing about the Mickey Mouse Club, which I was obsessed with. It was only on the air for like 5 years max. And yet it has a lot of memories for people. I mean, you put up that photo today and I could name every Mousketeer in that picture, and not just because they have their name on there, sure. But, I still have, my daughter loves looking at the old scrapbook I have. My parents took me to Disneyland to get their autographs. I don't know why it meant so much to me, but was the 50s.
Well, and tell me then why you, when did you discover the power of writing? Was that at that time when you?
I think it was the first one. I sometimes tell a funny story. This is not in the book. I don't think it's in the book. I guess I first discovered the power of writing.
Word.
No, it's all bullshit.
Hold on.
Oops.
Do resume.
I've just got to make sure everybody's muted. If you're in, hold on. I'm trying to keep people muted, but okay, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. The first thing I guess I ever had printed was a letter to the editor of Life magazine. I was about 15 and they had a thing about the best ice cream in the country. And they named all the best ice cream stores. And I wrote a letter to the editor that was printed. And I said, how could you leave out Baskin Robbins compared to all the other ones, or all the others are like chopped liver compared to Baskin Robbins. The next thing I know is it got printed. And there is a woman who is listening to this right now, and her name is Ernestine Elster. She will not remember this. Ernestine called me one night and she said, Michele, did you see that ad in the LA Times? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, I can't believe I'm the first one to tell you this. I opened up the LA Times. There's a half-page ad saying, Michele Willens, who are you? Where are you? Please call us from your friends at Baskin Robbins.
Oh, you're kidding.
And they invited me out. They gave me a private tour. They all were giving me standing ovations. My brother drove, they filled our car with all the ice cream we could fill it with. So maybe that's when I learned the power of the written word.
And did
And
you,
yeah.
was that your goal in life to be a journalist? I mean, from that time on? Or?
I guess I wanted to act, through my teenage years. I acted when I was at a boarding school, but also at that boarding school is the first time that an English teacher said to me, you're a really good writer.
Mhm.
And I guess that's when it sort of started. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. So, but you didn't, as you wrote in this piece that we published today, you wrote that you didn't stay with essays, but essays have been a really strong suit for you, but you went into more journalism.
I did, yeah. I mean, there weren't that many places to put essays in those days. I went right into journalism. My first job was being a film critic, the Santa Monica Evening Outlook, and then became a political reporter in California. Pretty good one, did a lot of pieces. And then we moved to New York.
Yeah.
And I started here with culture here. And I guess the personal pieces really became more with Huffington Post, the blogging.
Right,
They
right.
became more personal. And so who knows, but
Well,
I've always had a voice. I will say that. I think I've always had a voice.
and how would you describe your voice then?
Well, I do think it's empathetic. I think it's relatable. I think it has, I hope it has some power. I don't know. I just sort of know I've always had it. And I'm very glad I do. I guess it's personal, but without being overly personal, but relatable,
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
And I was amazed reading through this and your piece today. You have really met and done so many things. Like I know that Lori Lieberman is here, but I know we ran a story about Lori Lieberman and Killing Me Softly. It was by Eileen Stucane. But tell us, and then we can get Lori to chime in too if you want, Lori. But tell us about the fateful night when you.
Well, first of all, I met Lori Lieberman when I was about 16, traveling through Europe, and I was told to look up this family, the Lieberman family. They were living in Switzerland, and Lori was the middle girl, 3 girls, and I had a guitar case, and she said, "Oh, do you play the guitar and sing?" I said, "Yeah, I do. I sing. I write some songs." And she said, "Well, let's each play a song for each other." Fortunately, I went first because I never would have gone if I'd heard her sing. So I played some ridiculous song I'd written, and Lori sings "Catch the Wind," and I said, "Whoa." I said, "Lori, you are a singer." So then she moved to LA a few years ago. We started writing music together. And we still sing them sometimes when we see each other. And one day, 1971, I went to see Don McLean at the Troubadour. and then he was appearing one more night, and I called Lori and I said, you have to come with me to see Don McLean. She said, oh, I don't want to. I'm going through my stuff. I don't feel well. I don't want. I said, Lori, you have to come. She comes with me to the Troubadour the next night. And when Don McLean starts singing Empty Chairs, I noticed Lori pulls out a napkin and starts writing notes on that napkin. And later we looked at those notes and it was things like he's singing like he knows me. I feel like he's read my diary, etc. She gave it to the composer she was then doing an album with, and it became Killing Me Softly. So what can I say?
Lori, do you want to add to that? You want to unmute yourself and add to that? Or do you want me to unmute? There you are. I don't think we can hear. You're unmuted, but your audio might not be working.
Huh.
Which is, let's.
It's funny because her husband's in the audio, in the electronics world.
Let's see, one more time on. Try it now. Nope.
Yeah, I
Hey,
see.
we missed a chance to have the other side of that story. She's
That's
doing
very funny.
charades.
Yeah. Well, she's going to do an anniversary at the Troubadour, I think in April. We're celebrating that night. So.
Oh, wait. She's, okay. I don't know why that is. Anyway, so.
Yeah, that was something.
So tell me too, Michele, there's another thing you write about. You were there like at the invention of Paul Newman's salad dressing.
Well, he was a very good friend of my father's. And so they did a lot of political stuff together, I remember him coming to pick up my dad once to go to Santa Barbara for an event. And he came in a little Volkswagen. And I thought, that's odd. My dad said, yeah, we got there in about an hour because it turns out it had a Porsche engine.
Oh.
So, and that was a famous story because they stop at a coffee shop on the way to Santa Barbara. And Paul Newman had very big sunglasses on. So the waitress comes over, says, you want coffee? And they say, yeah. And she's just starting to pour hot coffee into my father's cup. And Paul Newman takes off his sunglasses and she sees who it is because she saw those blue eyes. And she poured the entire thing of coffee into my dad's crotch.
Oh my God.
So that was another Paul Newman thing, but they remained good friends. Yeah, one time we were at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club they were having some kind of meeting and I was with them and I ordered a salad. And then they brought some little dressing on the side, and Paul said, no. Bring her some oil, bring her some vinegar, he kind of made this was before he went into the business, obviously, but it tasted pretty good.
So I'm also interested, a lot of your stories are related to your dad. I mean, not a lot, but he's had a big influence. So can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, people have always said I should write a book about my father. And I just.
Well, tell us a little bit about him that for those of us who don't know.
Well, he came from the Ukraine. He came at the age of 8, couldn't speak one word of English, came to New York and then LA, grew up in LA, became very successful. He went to UCLA. Then he became a Japanese interpreter for the last year of World War II. And that obviously changed his life because he saw the damage that, the atomic bomb could do. So he came back. He was a very successful businessman and made some very good real estate decisions to the point that he could really retire at about the age of 50. And he spent the rest of his life as a very important philanthropist, but on anti-nuclear issues. He and Paul started the Center for Defense Information. They kind of they saved the Nation magazine. He did a lot of great things. And yeah, the book, it sort of accidentally became a little bit of a memoir about my dad because he had so much impact. I mean, we went to China right after Nixon because of my dad.
Yes, and you wrote about that for us. So tell us a little bit about.
That was a great piece I did for you. I love that piece. Well, that was going back after 40 years. I'd gone with him and my mother in 1973. And we got in because of a Brooklyn man named Sidney Shapiro. And that's a story, but we got in because of him. And so Sidney was kind of our host. And by the way, we went to Peking, as it was called then, went to Peking, we went to Shanghai, we went to one other town, city, which they said, this is our city of the future. And it was called Wuhan. Whoa, which came into, became a very bad name in the last 2 years. Anyway, so that was an amazing trip. 40 years later, I was invited to go with a group of journalists to China. And I said, I'm going to do this because it's a return trip. And I actually tracked down Sydney's daughter, who's my age. So, it was a very powerful.
Here you are.
thing.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I think that's my old friend, Wendy. That might be my oldest
Okay,
friend.
I'm trying to keep people muted. They're supposed to be muted when they come in, but I don't know why that's not working.
That's okay.
That's okay. So anyway, so you went back and you got to see the daughter.
I got to see the daughter who was my age. But when I had gone there, I didn't get to meet her because she was out in the Cultural Revolution, out in the countryside. But I wrote a piece anyway about how different our lives were at the same age. And then when I went back, I got to meet her. She now has her own daughter, as do I. I mean, it was pretty powerful. And her mother was, in China, they always have the older generations, 3 generations living together.
Right.
It was very powerful, I have to say.
Yeah, that was, and you can find it on, if you go to our Next Tribe and look up and Google Michele's name, you'll see a lot of these stories, or you will find them in the book.
Well,
better yet, for Michele, buy the book, right?
well, I think most of them have. It's on Amazon, but yes, that's very nice.
So tell me what's your favorite chapter or essay in the book?
I don't know. As I was kind of editing the book, I sort of got to think that the travel section of all things was one of my favorites. The Russia story, that when I went to Russia, I went to China. Wonderful piece, I think, about Italy, how men and women have changed in Italy from the first time I'd gone to, going nowadays. That's a nice piece. Nice one on San Miguel de Allende, a home of what I call them the next pads, not the expats, because they all go there to get their next life,
And by the way, I lived there for 4 years, and Next Tribe does a trip there every day over the Day of the Dead celebration. So,
oh yes,
close to my heart.
it's close to a lot of
Miguel
people.
de Allende.
No, that was really something. I love that. And I do a piece about the Malibu colony in the travel section, which I'd done for the Daily Beast, I believe. Done a lot of pieces on Malibu because my father, another good decision he made was buying a house in Malibu a lot of years ago when it cost about $100,000.
Wow. Wow.
It was a lot of money at that time, by the way, but now my husband and I own it and have fixed it up, and it's a pretty amazing part of my life, I have to say.
And what you're bi-coastal, you split kind of evenly.
Yeah, I'd say I spend more time in New York. My latest beat, who knew I'd have a beat at this time in my life, but suddenly a few years ago, I was asked to become a theater critic. So here I am going to shows, a lot. And now Broadway kind of locked down, so that was a good time for me to go out west for a long time. But now it's back up. This is the one I saw last night. I've been here one night. I've already seen one. Intimate Apparel, beautiful show. I've got about 5 more coming up in the next 2 weeks. So that's sort of my latest beat as I do this radio report. I write articles related to theater. Who knew getting a new beat at this time?
Well, and a lot has happened. You write about that you went back to college, you went back to school. And is that how the book came together? Is you went?
No, not really. The book came together when I went to the American Academy of Rome, and I that was my assignment to collect them all into a book. I know I was interviewed the other day on a podcast that was called Menopause. Very cute name, Menopause. Yeah. Anyway, these 2 women interviewed me, and they asked me about empty nest. How did I handle the empty nest? I said the first thing that I remember about empty nest is my husband walking down the hallway of our apartment, which was suddenly very neat and very quiet. And he said, "So what's what's supposed to be bad about the empty nest again, you know? So that was a good part, but of course I missed him terribly. What did I do when the empty nest hit? I went to college. I went back to college, just like my son was going out to college. So I did spend about 6 years taking classes at Columbia. I still need to finish, but I have to do a math and a science class. And until they let me out of that, I'm not going to get that degree.
And
If
what
there's anybody here who can tutor me in math and science for, I'll take it.
what was what are you trying to get? What would your degree be in?
Well, I never got the first degree. I never
Ah.
finished it. My parents said I could take a gap year after University of California, and I took 40 gap years. A year later, I had a really good job, and I thought, why would I go? And it was the 60s. So I don't know. Does it bother me that I don't have that? Maybe I'll get it at some point. I had a great time, and like I said, I wrote that piece for the New York Times about being the oldest person in the room, and believe me, in college, I really was.
And how did you, so tell us how you handled that, or how?
I liked it. I still remember one day, usually you'd be put in groups, study groups at times, and often I could see the other students rolling their eyes when I was assigned to their group.
Oh my gosh.
We got that woman, But let me tell you, they ended up liking it because I had a car, so I could drive us places if it was a field trip thing. Also, I could edit, and I could write. So we always made deals. I said, look, I'll edit it, I'll write, I'll set up interviews for this if you'll do the Google Docs, which I never understand. I still can't.
Do the technology, which you talk about in the book.
Oh my God. I walked into class, one class one day, I can't remember what it was, and the teacher yells at us. I walked in, she yelled out, Michele, do you happen to have a memory chip? I said, what? I said, I don't even have a memory. The whole class laughed at that, but they thought I was weird, but I would occasionally make a friend, and but I loved it. I loved it. I probably took 22 classes at Columbia University.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I just want to remind people that we'd love to hear from you, questions or comments. A lot of you know Michele, but I want to just hear what you thought of the book and what you know about Michele. Okay, let's see. Okay, Lori. Unfortunately, Lori, we can't get your audio, but Lori says, even though I couldn't be heard, I always say Michele is the story behind the story of Killing Me Softly. Without her, the song would never have been written. She continues to inspire. She says, would you ever consider writing a play about your father?
No.
Okay, why not?
No, I don't think so. I don't know what it would be. Death of a life of a salesman. I don't know.
No.
I don't think so.
But you did have I was gonna say, Michele, you are a playwright because you did do a two-person play or based on a story you did for Next Tribe about your.
Yeah, I've done a number of plays, including with my closest friend who's on this, Wendy Couch. He and I wrote a political play together that we loved called Don't Blame Me, I Voted for Helen Gahagan Douglas. That had wonderful, and Helen Gahagan Douglas was really a life hero for me. Yeah, and I wrote a piece for you. That was such a nice thing you did. I said, how about if I do an article for you, which is just the back and forth emails with me and my aunt.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, some people on this know. And she was 95 when I started that. Auntie D, I called her Auntie D. And that became a 2-character play in LA they did it as a reading during the pandemic, and people were very moved by it. And Doris, it was a great gift I could give her. She died last year, but she said, wow, you made me a star, So that was very nice. She couldn't understand why I was portrayed by a Black actress, but I said, Doris, welcome to 2021.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see, does Nancy Jacoby, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say that I think I've read and seen almost all of Michele's plays and works. And Dear Maudie, I think, is as close to something autobiographical as she's ever done. It was a wonderful show. And I think you ought to talk about your kids a little bit. They're very special.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Nancy's been the most supportive friend ever, ever, ever. And we've gone through so many things together, including Zooming this morning together and Pilates. But yeah, the first play I ever wrote was called Dear Maudie. And that started as I was taking a class for some reason downtown on how to write for children. I don't know why. I was thinking, again, it was a time in my life. What do I do next? What do I do next? And the teacher at one time said, okay, everybody has 2 minutes or 3 minutes, write a letter to anybody. It could be Abe Lincoln. It could be your father. It could be anybody in your life. And I sat down, I wrote Dear Maudie, and I wrote a letter to this girl who had been my best friend in elementary school. And the whole class said, see, you're talking about, by the way, the power of the voice. The whole class said, whoa, that's going to be something. And you know what? I turned it into a play called Dear Maudie, and that had a lot of success. It was for young people. New York Times did a piece about it. We sold out every show. My daughter starred in it.
Oh
with
my
a lot of
gosh.
other kids. And it was about, tweens. And as you know, I think I am credited with coining the term tweens. So nobody's
Well-
ever contested it.
Leah, I'm going to say, let's hear about that. When did you first use it? The word.
In a piece for the New York Times, I did a piece on what kind of movies you take the in-betweeners to, and I called them tweens. I didn't know that it was the first time anybody'd used it, but if you Google me, it's the first thing that comes up, nobody's ever contested it. But that play, Dear Maudie, I love that play, and it was published. It was done a lot of places. It's about kids and losing your best friend. Maudie was my best friend, and then she was taken away by a new clique that came in. It was about cliques. And anyway, I really liked that one. Thank you, Nancy, for reminding me. So I went from Dear Maudie to Dear Auntie D, 20 years later.
There's some symmetry, some good symmetry there. And
Okay.
Lori Lieberman is asking if you ever get writer's block.
No, I don't think I do. No, because I'm always writing something. And it's not like I have an assignment and I just can't write. The only time I had writer's block was when I was at Columbia and I had to do essays. What were the finals, the take-home finals? And then, of course, I wrote a piece about that. I wrote a piece about it for The Atlantic on what students liked better. Did they like better take-home finals or doing class finals?
And what was your conclusion?
Then most of them liked it in class.
Why is that? Just get it over with?
Get it over with. And I got writer's block when I was home. I was like trying to write an essay, a final. I thought, wait a minute, I'm a good writer. Why can't I write? So I guess that was writer's block, But yeah, I forgot about that. So everything leads to something for me,
Well, I know. I think that's what's great about a life like yours is that, everything's material, as Nora Ephron said, but right? That every writer knows that, even if it wasn't a famous phrase, right? You turn something into, you see something, you experience something, you see the way it can resonate, and you go with it. And you've done a beautiful job at that, of really capturing so many moments that we've all experienced along the way. And what is there a certain person along the way that you most loved meeting besides everybody here? We understand that they're
Everybody, yeah, I like everybody here. And one of my heroes is here, Ernestine Elster. I created a character based on her for another play I did. Ernestine is in her 90s, went back to college in her 40s. At that time, she was one of my mother's best friends. All her friends thought she was crazy. And now she's, emeritus at UCLA, archaeology. I always forget how to pronounce it. Emeritus, at UCLA. So she is a personal hero of mine. Helen Gahagan Douglas. I interviewed her in 1973, and people were wearing little buttons that said, "Don't blame me. I voted for Helen Gahagan Douglas," because Richard Nixon had clobbered her in a terrible, terrible Senate race in 1950 in California. and she was a remarkable woman. So I've written many things about Helen over my life. I don't know. I've loved, when people say who was your favorite interview, I usually say James Garner, who I have. I write about that in the book. He's one of my. I just loved him. I interviewed him twice. He was so funny and so honest and such a gentleman and so charming. The second time I interviewed him was in LA, and I was very pregnant. And I remember him walking me to my car. And I don't know. Of all the celebrities, I would say Garner was probably my favorite.
That's nice to hear. That's good. When your Nancy Jacoby says that most of your friends and colleagues end up in your pieces in one way or another. So
yes, they do. Some are happier than others about it. Yeah.
Have you ever gotten blowback from somebody who didn't like what you wrote? Or
I'm trying to think about that. One friend always kids me about it. I didn't give her a name, so she just said, but because I'd asked her once about, I did a piece on friendship. I think it's probably in the book, what kind of friends we have at different parts of our life. And she had a second home at that point in Palm Springs. And I said, let me ask you, do you have friends there? No, I said, are you making good friends there? And she said, well, let me say this. I'm making friends there that probably wouldn't be my friends here. And so I knew what she was saying. She always kind of kidded me about that, but I didn't put her name on it. I would not do that, But so yeah, everything's material.
Everything's material. So how long did it take you to put everything together for this book?
Well, it's taken a couple of years, but that's just, I took time on, I went to Rome and I sort of collected all the essays that I wanted to use. I got the blurbs from wonderful people.
Yes. How did you get Judith Viorst? I mean, she's one of my heroes.
She's one of my heroes. I've known Judy Viorst most of my adult life. She and her husband were very good friends of my parents. So I've done many things about Judy. And with Judy, I mean, she's just a fantastic person. And she, loves all of this. So yeah, Judy and John Alter, I got wonderful blurbs, Sally Coslow.
Yes.
I don't know, I put it all together then, but then the pandemic hit and I don't know, it kind of sat on the side. I tried one designer that didn't really work and then I waited and then, I don't know. But you know what? In a way, first I was annoyed that it didn't get out faster, but then I was glad that it wasn't until after 2020, because then I get to include all the stuff from 2020. I thought, why would I put out a book without 2020?
Right, yeah.
So that turned out to be a blessing. The whole last chapter is the year to forget,
Right.
And those are probably the best pieces.
Right. And you wrote for us about aging, aging quickly or noticing your aging, right? Was that that great?
The year of aging suddenly. Yeah.
Suddenly, yeah. Where it's like all of a sudden you're faced with it in a way that you hadn't before. And Betty Glenn, you had, if you want to unmute yourself, you can say hi to Michele. If you're there, Betty.
Hey, Michele.
I
was just wondering if you would tell us how you came up with or got the idea for the cover of the book.
Well, my designer, hi Betty. Betty's a very creative woman and an incredible musical person and teaches every kid in the upper, I don't know, every kid in New Jersey how to sing. But anyway, well, I got Shara McBee was my designer for the book and she knew this guy. She said, I've got the cover guy for you. He's done a lot of things. He works for Apple. He works for, Microsoft. So I just said, all right, do it. I'm not even sure. People seem to like it.
It's nice and whimsical. Well, you can probably see it better. The style.
Yeah, it's whimsical. Yeah.
It's got the whimsy there. And so what about somebody suggested we ask about your children. So tell us about your children. Now that you talked about empty nest and how have you let go and how have they?
First, I had my kids very late in life. I had Lily at 39 And she is a delight. She was a performer her whole youth, I think it's fair to say, an actress, singer, etc. And now she's in the news business like her father, works at MSNBC, works very hard, lives in New York. And Michael, our son, I had at 44, and he's just a beautiful, beautiful boy. Lives in Santa Monica now with his delightful girlfriend, who's in business school. And Michael is a sports writer.
Oh,
He covers his favorite team, the Lakers. So he's got a good gig out there. And I have delightful kids. Are they perfect? No, but as people always tell me, nobody has perfect kids, Michele. Nobody has perfect kids. So.
and you're a grandmother, right? Does he have
No,
Oh,
no,
no. Okay, I didn't.
that ain't happening. But
Oh.
I mean, all my friends are. On the other hand, serves me right for having my kids at 39 and 44. But on the other hand, my parents were grandparents to my kids in their early 80s. They certainly had other grandchildren before, and they were wonderful. My kids remember them very fondly. All 4 are gone now, of course, but if it happens, it happens. I'm a very good aunt, and I had a very good aunt too. So
Yes, as we know.
as you know.
Well, I'm so happy that Next Tribe has been involved with this. And I think we met for the first time at a luncheon that I had for Next Tribe writers. It was the first year. Next Tribe's 5 years old for people who don't know. And I started it, and I've always wanted good writers in the magazine, and to be able to express what happens at this time of our life, what we go through as women in this age, because I didn't feel like people were giving it enough attention, and didn't feel like there was the tone of it wasn't approachable, or it made you, if most things you read about this age were just, it felt like, okay, goodbye, you're gone, you're off the cliff already. But your writing is a great example of just, we're still so vital and so full of life and curiosity. And so I was so happy to meet you that time. I had lunch in one of the first year of Next Tribe. I had a lunch in New York, and I invited all these writers just to say thank you so much, because
It's a really good website, Jean. You've done a great job. And, in tough times, it's gotten better. I mean, obviously it could have gone down like a lot of them, but it actually rose up, and you have really fine writers. Some of my favorite writers write for Next Tribe.
Yeah. So if there's writers out there in the audience, we should say, we'd love to see your work and how life has been for you. I say to some people, it's like, what it's like to be this age in these times. And actually, we started it in 2017, the beginning of the Trump years. So there was a lot of things to write about, and still is. Obviously, we've got a lot to work on, but there's just a lot. And I do believe that the way Hillary Clinton was treated during the election was one of the things that sparked me to start this. So,
well, these are scary. I mean, let's face it, I hate to end on a down note, but these are really hard times. It's sad times between, the pandemic, what that has done, what's going on, yes, with our democracy, what's going on with the world. Right outside my apartment, they're protesting right now because the Russian consulate is right around the corner. So our street is covered with cops and people yelling out, leave, I forget what they're saying, let go of Ukraine, whatever. But so my dad came from Ukraine, so I should probably be out there with him, but these are hard times, so all we can do is, God, try to share and laugh and sing and listen to Lori Willens sing, which I never get tired of doing, by the way. She has a new album coming up. But anyway,
and what one last thing, what is it that you're going to be writing next, or what are you working on? What can we look forward to seeing?
That's such a good question. What am I doing next? I'm trying to think. I guess I have every week I try to do something about the book, which is why I did that piece for you. And I did one for the LA Review of Books, which they like. So each week I give myself a goal. I'm doing something each week that is a
Mhm.
piece for somebody. So I'm keeping that up, and I don't know. I do the theater. Like I said, that's the main thing right now. I've got
Oh,
4
right,
shows.
right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing mostly. I'm writing my script for Monday already. So that's really mostly.
And that's, let's leave that on we can leave that on a up note, is that the theater is basically back. I know that there's been some fits and starts, but
Fits and starts. I saw 20 shows, I think I mentioned, or 23 before I left. They've all closed as far as I know, but now they're picking up again. Like I said, I have about 4 coming up, including The Music Man of all things with Hugh Jackman. So
oh, yeah.
yeah, my husband says I'm saving us thousands and thousands of dollars a year by getting press seats to all this, because I used to do this without getting press seats. So now at least I feel good about that. But no, that's been the main gig right now, is the theater world. And yes, it's coming back. So come to New York and, get over your fears, and let's hope.
Well,
Let's hope-
I'll be there. I'll be there soon.
I know you are. I'll take you to one of the shows with me.
Oh, okay. I'm going to hold you to that.
All right.
If anybody else, if you want to unmute yourself and just applaud Michele and thank her for coming. We are just so honored to have her with us in Next Tribe. So thank you so much, Michele. Now I'm going to go get a glass of wine. I think everybody should.
Here's to a better year. Thank you so much, Jeannie.
Oh, thank you. And thanks everyone for coming.
Keep writing, Michele.
Just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
We
Joan
miss you in Malibu.
I'm coming.
We miss you.
Take
I
care.
know, that's a woman I met in Rome.
How wonderful. That's so
That's
great.
what
That's great.
Great
Thank you
time.
all. Bye-bye.